We're going to take some calls because, and let me say this now, the number is 1-800 259 9231. That's 1-800 259 9231. Last night, I had the privilege of speaking in Boca to the American First Committee. Terrific turnout there. I met Stanley Tate, one of Donald Trump's earliest partners and a major mover and shaker in the National Republican Party. But many people in the crowd said to me, why don't you take more calls when you're on InfoWars? So you asked, we respond. Let's start with Keith in Arizona. Keith, what's on your mind?
Yeah, Roger.
Keith, there you go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith. You're with us.
Okay. Why can't Trump declare martial law, round up all these traitors from Congress and the judicial, put them in prison, and then when that's done, declare martial law all over?
Well, he can't do that because we do have a constitutional form of government, and we revere the Constitution.
I understand.
But he could urge the Justice Department to arrest and indict George Soros because he has paid people to advocate violence and the assassination of the president, a serious federal crime that could earn Mr. Soros, already in his 80s, a good 15 or 20 years in the slam. He could have the IRS commissioner and the Department of Justice review David Brock's failure to pay taxes and his shuffling money between nonprofits and hard money political committees and other activities that others have gone to prison for. He could order his government to release all of the documents pertaining to Russian collusion. And then we'll see exactly what the government does not have. So he has awesome powers. Don't sell him short. He will ultimately use them. Jason in Florida, my home state of Florida. Jason, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir, Mr. Stone. God bless you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I have a question. Just wondering why, basically, why they are attacking you when you have your article that you put out there that is public, and why is Comey still basically the FBI director? Why hasn't Trump talked about Comey and his corruption with Hillary Clinton and Lenny Hergo?
Not to mention the hundreds of millions he's made helping HSBC break the law. Look, Mr. Comey was the federal prosecutor in charge of the Sandy Berger case. You remember that? Berger snuck into the National Archives, stuffed classified documents down his pants that showed that Bill Clinton could have taken out bin Laden and did not do so. He, of course, was not prosecuted. Mark Rich, a fugitive from justice, funneled millions of dollars through his wife to the Clinton Foundation. In return, he got a pardon, a federal crime. Neither Bill Clinton nor Mr. Rich was prosecuted by Mr. Comey. Mr. Comey acknowledged that Hillary Clinton had broken the law repeatedly in her unsecure server. No prosecution from Mr. Comey. Mr. Comey announced the week before the election that there were 650,000 new emails and that he was reopening the investigation into Hillary's emails. Although it took him 2 years to go through 33,000 emails, he managed to read through all 650,000 in a weekend, and he assured us there was nothing there. That is a lie. So Mr. Comey has no public credibility. They used him to blacken my name because you see when he says, they asked a question about Roger Stone, is he under investigation? He says, well, I couldn't comment on that. You see, this is a kabuki dance. It's like a circus that's meant to hang in the air, pregnantly, implying yes. Let me say this. I fear nothing from an FBI investigation. The idea that Crucifer 2.0 and my brief public exchange with him constitutes collusion is a steaming pile of dung as an argument. The idea that I knew about Podesta's email hacking in advance is proved nowhere. Conjecture, speculation. We operate in this country on proof. And lastly, I've been quite forthright about the fact that I heard through an intermediary, back channel, intermediary, mutual friend, same thing. Told me two things and two things only. Julian Assange, who does not work for the Russians, who is an opponent of the deep state, and who, yes, I think is a hero. Representative Schiff, he doesn't work for the Russians, if you're listening. The idea that I knew anything other than the fact that he had a treasure trove on Hillary Clinton, and that it included everything, which I took to mean many of the emails that had been erased in Hillary's unsecure, illegal server. I said both those things publicly. Does that mean I knew the topics, the timing, the strategy behind their release? No. And anyone who says that is making a false and unsupportable charge. So trust me, if I have my opportunity to confront my accusers, we'll find out whether they can handle the truth. Thanks for your call. Pardon me. Let's go to Kevin in the bluegrass state of Kentucky. Kevin, you're on InfoWars.
Yeah, I know that Trump is not a big fan of the UN treaties, but I want to know if Trump's going to look into the 1958 Atlantic Treaty or Antarctica Treaty.
It's a question I cannot address. I think the president has got, a very aggressive agenda. I am one of those who thinks he should deal with the economy first, that he should drive, as I said earlier, over the objections of his chief economic advisor, Mr. Cohen, to get a pro-growth dynamic tax reform package passed to get this economy moving. As John F. Kennedy said, a rising tide lifts all boats. So I think the economy, immigration, and trade probably first on his agenda. But thanks for your call. Let's go to Cora in California.
Hi, Mr. Stone. I have a question regarding you being poisoned and how you knew and how you're feeling now.
I am feeling pretty good. I sustained some minor injuries in a hit-and-run car crash when I was driving to Orlando. As many of you know, the car I was riding in, the passenger seat was T-boned at a high speed. Thankfully, the driver was trained in evasive maneuvers. What could have been much worse still bent the frame and may have totaled the car. We're waiting to hear from the insurance company. The airbags deployed. I had a scratch on my nose, no real injuries, but the fact that my right eye, for which I had surgery about a year ago to reattach a retina, a mishap that came from a ill-advised boxing match, is now giving me trouble. I hope to see a specialist early next week. I am hopeful I do not have to have another a reattachment surgery. The recovery process is quite difficult. Cora, thank you for your call. Let's go to Rich in the Empire State. Rich, lay it on us.
How you doing, Mr. Stone?
Excellent.
Just have one question. Do you think there's any kind of antitrust laws being violated by Google with the fact that they have such a hold over the internet with search?
I have been consulting with a very well-known attorney here in Florida who makes that very case. It's a very compelling case. Now that President Trump has control of the massive federal bureaucracy, he should see if he can use it for the purposes of broadening free speech, of broadening choices, of broadening options. That is a legitimate function of government. So I would hope that legal minds better than mine would examine your idea. Rich, thanks very much for calling. Let's see. Shane in Ohio. Shane, you're on InfoWars.
Roger, it's great to talk to you. You're a great man.
Thank you, sir.
You talk to Trump still, and you need to advise him that he needs to think about giving a daily, nightly address to the nation every night until this Russian ignorance is over with. It needs to happen, Roger.
Well, that's a very interesting proposal. As you know, Franklin Roosevelt used the fireside chat, a radio invention of his. You could almost picture him sitting in front of a fire to communicate very directly. Donald Trump, of course, uses his Twitter feed with precise efficiency. It allows him to reach 16 million people without going through the filter of the mainstream media. This is why they hate it. This is why the drumbeat that he must stop tweeting because it isn't presidential. Mr. President, if you're listening, double up on the tweets. Shane, thanks for calling. Jeff in California.
Roger, it's good to. I'm glad to hear that you're okay, sir. My question is, and I know that I speak on behalf of thousands upon thousands of people that are waiting for these trials to happen. These people, the corruption runs so deep, and they just keep piling on the lie. They're following Hitler's advice of the lie, make it big, say it over and over again. There's so many people involved. How long do you anticipate the trials to last once they get started? And I'm waiting every day, as I know a lot of people are, waiting for these people to be arrested, indicted. I know that you're ready. That being said, I hope someday there's a statue erected of you. I was part of StopTheStill.org, and I admire you, sir, your courage. And how soon do you think these trials will happen, and how long?
Well, we are a nation of laws, not men. Sometimes when you look at the way the Clintons have been treated, you have to question that. But we have due process in this country. From a strictly political point of view, however, I think that those who are attempting to topple the president and doing so through illegal and unconstitutional means are only going to motivate him to use his awesome powers to clean up this rigged system and put the deep state criminals and their military industrial financiers behind bars. I put my faith in Donald Trump. He's just getting his feet wet in the job, but the personal attacks on him, on his family, the lies, the creation of the whole Russian fraud. You noticed as soon as Trump laid out that he'd been under surveillance at Trump Tower, suddenly the talking heads in the deep state start saying, oh, there really is no evidence of Russian influence. They started this. Now they'd just like it to all go away, but it's not going to. Jeff, thanks for your call. Eddie in New York. Let's go, Eddie.
Hi, Mr. Felton. Good to hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This Russian accusation has gone into a whole nother world, to a fantasy world that, the mainstream media and rogue elements of government and multinational corporations are trying to collude us into thinking that we are Russians. It is ridiculous. And no greater example is by attacking you by using, just like try to run you over, not letting you to speak in front of a hearing. This is an outrage.
Yeah, no, it is. Look, it is very difficult to explain the feeling you get. Let me put it this way. When I was a young man working for Senator Bob Dole in Washington, my wife and I lived in a small house in Arlington, Virginia, which was a kind of a quaint wooden house that had been there, we thought, since the turn of the century. And our landlord was a Native American named Jeff Bushyhead. He was a fine guy. And he charged a fair price for a nice place. One day while I was at work, someone broke in a window and ransacked the entire house. The feeling of violation that you get cannot be described. And so it is when you realize that people have been looking at your emails to your wife, to your children, to your grandchildren, to your friends. That is the big brother that the Obamas have brought. Thanks for your calls, and thanks for joining us at InfoWars. And Eddie, thank you. Hello, I'm Roger Stone, back with you at InfoWars and filling in with Super Patriot Alex Jones. Alex, as you know, has now become a target of the deep state. I myself this past week got at least 4 inquiries from mainstream media reporters seeking to document the millions that Vladimir Putin has paid on bots pushing the InfoWars stories. This is, of course, a total fraud. It's a lie, but it's meant to destabilize. You know, I've always had an interest in men's style. If you're not familiar with it, I have an entire website I edit, stoneonstyle.com, in which I talk about classic elements of men's style of clothing. Look good, feel good. But last week, when I appeared on this very show wearing a leather jacket, a black beret, a black T-shirt, and some shades, well, some woman named Cardley Ledbetter seemed to think that this was a little over the top. She described me, according to the Huffington Post, as looking like a cat burglar. I guess she's thinking Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief, but that's the wrong homage. This is straight out of Oakland, down and dirty Black Panther, Huey Newton, Bobby Seale homage. It's a homage. You see, classic styles never go out of date, and that leather jacket look still works. You see, they were radicals. I am a radical. But what I found now is people not only want to criticize my clothing, they want to criticize my hair, what I have left of it. They want to criticize my dog. They didn't like the name that I picked. They try to poison me. They try to hit me on the highway because I will stand up against the two-party duopoly. You see, for many years, I was part of the system. I helped the Bushes attain power so they could steal millions. I helped George H.W. Bush become president. I helped his son become president. I'm sure that I will get my just punishment in hell for those transgressions. But now I can tell you, despite my longtime sentimental attachment to the old Republican Party, the two-party elite leadership have run this country into the ditch. Donald Trump's election was the hostile takeover of one of our two major parties. But that doesn't mean the core of establishment Republicans aren't still opposing his mission. Get your copy of The Making of the President 2016 if you want to understand this epic struggle between the two-party duopoly and their handpicked candidates, Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, and this man of the people, Donald J. Trump. You can find out all about John Podesta's emails, all about WikiLeaks, all about the Russian myth. It's all right there in the book, folks. And if you order it at the Infowars.com store, you will ultimately get a signed copy. Thanks for joining us here. Victory or death.